In the summer of 1998, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls were on top of the world. Or I should say, still on top of the world. With their victory over the Utah Jazz in the '98 NBA Finals, the Bulls had completed their second championship three-peat, a monumental accomplishment that solidified their singular place in NBA history. As fate would have it though, it wasn't long before that team itself was history. Almost immediately following their '98 title, that Bulls juggernaut was dismantled piece by piece, a dizzying process that culminated with Jordan walking away from basketball for the second time. Although the Jordan-led Bulls reached their pinnacle in '97-98, cementing themselves as the greatest dynasty in modern NBA history with their sixth title in an 8-year span, it was abundantly clear the whole time that that season would be the end of their run, win or lose, their last dance. And not just because Jordan was on another one-year contract and had hinted at the possibility of retirement at season's end. Rather, the all but inevitable dismantling had more to do with the two Jerrys. Jerry Reinsdorf, the Bulls owner who was uninterested in spending the money required to keep this juggernaut together, and Jerry Krause, who took over as Bulls general manager in 1985 and shepherded the team through its historic run, but was, by all accounts, immensely egotistical, had strained relationships with virtually every key person in the Bulls locker room, and by the autumn of '97 was seemingly resolved to blow up the best basketball team ever assembled and rebuilt. Firstly, Krause had had enough of Phil Jackson, who at that point had more championships than any head coach in NBA history other than John Cunla and Red Auerbach. But Jackson and Krause's relationship had deteriorated to the point that they couldn't even work out a multi-year deal for the Zen Master ahead of the '97-98 campaign, even coming off a second straight title. Eventually, the two sides agreed to a one-year contract, but Krause plainly told Jackson that '97-98 would be his last season coaching the Bulls, even if they went 82-0. Then, on top of that, there was the untenable situation between Krause and Scottie Pippen, Jordan's de facto lieutenant and a perennial all-star. See, Pippen had long been underpaid after signing a 7-year contract worth $18 million in 1991. By '97-98, amid the explosion in player salaries over the course of the decade, Pippen was only the 6th highest paid player on the Bulls and wasn't even among the NBA's top 100 earners. And although he tried to renegotiate his deal, Krause and Reinsdorf weren't having it. So Pippen's anger festered, leading him to put off toe surgery that he could have had immediately following the Bulls' '97 title until basically the start of the following season. And even once he returned to the lineup in January, after missing 35 games and having a trade request unfulfilled, Pippen was still cheesed. So much so that he started berating Krause in front of his teammates. So yeah, the writing was on the wall there too. Pippen, like Jackson, was gone at season's end. Now incredibly, despite the overwhelmingly bad vibes, the Bulls were a juggernaut once again in '97-98. They won 62 games, outlasted the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then sunk the Utah Jazz in 6 games en route to a second three-peat. In the process, Jordan won his 10th career scoring title, his 5th MVP award, and his 6th Finals MVP, averaging almost 34 points per game against Utah and nailing the championship ceiling go-ahead jumper in the dying seconds of Game 6, the so-called last shot. But the euphoria of that moment in that championship, and the Bulls' chance to further distinguish themselves in the annals of NBA history, wasn't enough to compel Bulls leadership to do whatever it had to do to keep the band together. First, despite Jordan's insistence that he wouldn't play for anyone but Jackson, the Bulls watched the most successful NBA coach of his generation depart. Barely a week after the Bulls' Game 6 victory, Jackson announced that he wouldn't be returning.
The working relationship between Jerry Krause and myself has deteriorated, and at that level where Jerry likes to have a lot of control and he likes to do a lot of things his way. I grew on by some of the control issues that he liked to put up as barriers, and those things happen in relationships.
Meanwhile, as the NBA headed into a lockout that would stretch all the way into the new year, the Bulls remained committed to shipping out the disgruntled Pippen. And that plan eventually came to fruition. Early in 1999, the Bulls agreed to a sign-in trade with the Houston Rockets, shipping Pippen down south for essentially a second-round pick. And so, with his beloved coach gone, his longtime on-court partner on his way out, and more key players about to be cut as well, Jordan had no interest in returning to Chicago. This Bulls team that he had captained, this unparalleled juggernaut of a team that had turned the NBA into a global cultural powerhouse, was finished. And as it turned out, so was Jordan. Rather than find a new team and continue his singular career elsewhere, Jordan, on the eve of the lockout-shortened '98-99 campaign, held a press conference in which he announced for the second time that he would be retiring from basketball.
I am here to announce my retirement from the game of basketball. I thought about saying just 2 words, I'm gone, but I figured I owe the fans and certainly the media a little bit more than that.
It wasn't as earth-shattering an announcement as his first retirement in 1993, when he decided, in the wake of the Bulls' first three-peat, to pursue a career in professional baseball, but still, this was monumental. Jordan, after all, had yet to turn 36. He wasn't that old, at least not by all-time legend standards. Wilt Chamberlain played through his age 36 season. Moses Malone played until he was 39. Hell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played his last NBA game at 42. And critically, Jordan was still the best basketball player alive. Again, he was the reigning MVP and scoring champ. But as he explained in his press conference, Jordan felt he was no longer challenged by the NBA. He also cited mental exhaustion in explaining his decision and said he was at peace with calling it quits. And that was that. Life moved on for Jordan and the Bulls. Although, not surprisingly, the post-MJ chapter of Bulls history was ugly. And it probably wasn't long before Krause was beset with regret for blowing up his dynasty. In 98-99, with no Jordan, no Jackson, no Pippen, no Dennis Rodman, and no Luke Longley, the reigning champion Bulls were one of the worst teams in the NBA, winning just 13 games in the lockout-shortened season. Ultimately, the glorious rebuild that Krause had imagined never came to pass, and Chicago wouldn't finish higher than last place in its division again until 2002-2003, the same season that Krause resigned. And as for Jordan, he did what any impossibly wealthy retired guy would do. He bought a pro sports franchise. Just 1 year after announcing his retirement, Jordan became a part owner of the Washington Wizards, not to mention their new president of basketball operations. And you already know what happened next. Despite saying at his retirement press conference that he was 99.9% sure that he would never play in the NBA again, Jordan eventually headed down from the owner's box back to the floor. In 2001, a 38-year-old Jordan unretired for the second time, divesting his ownership share and giving up his management position to join the Wizards on a 2-year contract for what ended up being the actual final leg of his playing career. To this day, though, almost a quarter century later, it's impossible not to consider the alternate timelines for Jordan and the Bulls. What could have been had Krause been less obstinate about his rebuilding plan and Reinsdorf more willing to spend? Jordan himself actually posited in The Last Dance that he and his teammates would have been willing to take 1-year deals in 1999 for a chance to become the first team in the post-merger NBA to win 4 straight championships. Would that Bulls team have won it all in 1999? Maybe. Probably. But fate said otherwise. And so the enduring image of Jordan from that year isn't him hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy for the 7th time. It's him sitting at a dais in a suit saying goodbye to basketball. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.